In the previous video, we saw flex direction, row reverse, column and column reverse. The next property lined up for us is the justify content. It's again very simple to understand. Let's quickly jump back to the code. I am first going to close this and this as well, and then open justify content here, and then open justify content.css as well, side by side. Let's also open justify content in our web browser. So in this thing, as you can see here, justify content property is used to align the flex items along the main axis. So this is where all our efforts from the first video come into the picture. A lot of people have this misconception and ask me that justify content used to align the items from maybe left to right or top to bottom or horizontally or vertically. What was it used for? So to never ever get confused on this thing that it's going to align the things horizontally or vertically, no, it's going to align the flex items through the main axis. It's going to align the flex items along the main axis. It's not going to align them horizontally or vertically. So I hope that you understood the meaning of this justify content property. Now there are various values in justify content. First of all, very simple, I think by default it's already flex start. So yes, the first property is justify content flex start. As you might have guessed, it does nothing but it aligns the items along the main axis from the start. Flex end starts aligning from the opposite or the end of the flex end, which is the end of the main axis. So there's a big difference between justify content flex end and flex direction row reverse. You might get confused here. So justify content flex end does not change the order of the items. It is going to go from 1 2 3 4 5 only. It's not going to go 5 4 3 2 1, but it's going to align them in right hand side if your flex direction is row, and it's going to align them in bottom if your flex direction is column. Let's quickly have a look at them as well. The other value for justify content would be center. So it's going to do nothing but align all your flex items in the center of the parent container. The next one is space around. Space around is going to do nothing but going to divide them equally with equal space at left at right. So each element is going to have an equal space from the left and from the right as well. So you can probably make a line here and see the distance from this to this imaginary line would be equal to distance from item 1 and this imaginary line at the leftmost thing. So the distance between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 might not be equal because 1 is the leftmost element, but you can see this basically each element is nothing but centered aligned to its own sort of imaginary container where it will have an equal space from the left and from the right. I hope you got it. It's nothing but space around. It's going to have equal space at left and at right. Every element will have an equal space at left and at right. The last one is space between. So space between does nothing but equally divides the space between the items, ignoring the leftmost and the rightmost, or the topmost and the bottommost in case of flex direction as column. So that is that, very simple. Let's have a look at all these properties in action. So let's go back to our boilerplate code and let's start doing this. So flex start is, or by default we have the justify content as flex start, so it's not going to make any change. We can see it did not make any change, but the next ones are going to make a change. So let's very easily copy and paste this whole thing here and then name it as flex end, and I'm going to name the class as end. So very quickly let me do an end here, justify content flex end. So again, always remember that justify, whenever you are justifying the content, justify content always goes from along the main axis. This is something super important to understand, because the next property is going to be align items, and align always works along the cross axis. A lot of people get confused in this, which is for what. Justify is for main axis and align is for the cross axis. Cool. The first one was flex start, next one was flex end. Let's have a look at the other ones. Next one is center. So very quickly, the same steps. I hope you got it, and I hope you now feel that how simple the Flexbox really is. A lot of people actually are afraid of Flexbox before even starting it, and Flexbox is actually the simplest thing that we can ever learn. It's super simple. So in the next one, the justify center, it does nothing but justifies the content in the center. Let's also do one thing. Let's also have one example for column. So let's do one thing. Let's add here as flex direction as column, and let's probably give a br tag here, just to have a little bit of just to have it to the next line, and then let's have it as column center. Cool. Just so this is only to tell you that it only justify content only aligns to the main axis. So if the flex direction is column and then the justify content is center, and let's have a little bit of height as well. Let's give it a height of, let's say, 500 pixel or maybe 700 pixels, just an arbitrary height, so that we are able to see this thing center aligned. Now if we see here, you can see that this is actually center aligned. So yeah, it always aligns along the main axis. In flex direction row, the main axis is horizontal, so it aligns horizontally. In flex direction as column, the main axis is vertical, so it aligns vertically. Awesome. Let's copy and paste this as well to see the last two possibilities as well. The second last was space around, and let's give it a sort of class name as space around as well. So let's define the CSS for this. I'm going to call justify content and then put a space around. So yes, as you can see, the space in the left is equal to space in the right for each element, and the last one is going to be space between. After that, we can actually take a break and come back in the next video and see the next property. This is going to be, you already know what the outcome is going to be here. It's just that I'm telling you so that you feel comfortable now in each property of Flexbox. As you can see, justify content space between distributes the space equally in between the elements, and the same goes for column as well. Let me copy and paste this one. Column between, let's say column between, and I'm going to call it justify content, and justify content as space between. And as you can see here, let me provide the styling for this as well. Let me copy and paste this and just fixing the name here, and I'm going to have this property as space between. So now if you see here, the items are aligned equally, the space is distributed equally in between the items. But the thing to remember here is justify content works along the main axis. In the row, the main axis is horizontal. When we talk about column, the main axis is vertical. That's it. Let's end this video here and see you in the next video with the next property. Bye bye.